What's going on, y'all? Back at it again. Another episode, another day, another blessing from God, y'all. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing well. Hope your life's going good. Hope the good things are, coming from you. Coming for you, I should say. Today's episode's a little bit different. Today we're talking about men's mental health, man. I haven't uploaded in a while, but this is just something that God's kind of put on my heart for a while. I've been thinking about this a lot. I have a lot of friends that are dealing with this, and I feel like this, it's kind of strange how many teenagers are dealing with this. Just struggling with this mental health. Why is it such a big crisis in our generation? I've probably made this video. This is my fourth time making this video. The first two times I made it was an hour long, and that was fine by me, but it just didn't sit right. And the third time I made it, I counted. I said man, the word man, probably 40 times within the first 5 minutes because of how, it's been a while since I've done this, so it just didn't sit right. But, you ever feel like a soda can that's been sitting in the back seat of your truck for a couple months, man? It's all rattled up and everything and about to explode, but, nobody's popped the tab yet, man. But as soon as that, tab pops, that thing's gonna explode everywhere and start spewing out like a freaking fire hydrant that just got ran over by a truck. You know what I'm saying, man? It's just gonna spew out. All these things are just gonna straight up. It gets dropped, kicked, heated up, man, but nobody opens it. I feel like that's what a lot of guys feel like, man. I feel like a lot of guys, they got a roundabout of emotions, right? And you got a lot of things coming in from these sides, And, in a roundabout, there's always something going on the inner circle, man. And everybody's worried about what's going on the outside, man. Where do I merge in, Where does this feeling come into play, man? And it's all going on in this roundabout of emotions, all right? But, sometimes I feel like on the inside of us, man, we're that roundabout, man, and we're always bringing things in from every which way, man. But we never slow down the roundabout to start relaxing it and feeling ourselves and feeling on what's going on the inside, man. A lot of guys build up this pressure like the soda can, man, but they try to play it like they're cool. That soda can in the back of your truck doesn't hiss at you and tell you, hey, I'm good. It just kind of, or it doesn't, I'd say it doesn't hiss at you and tell you that it's struggling, man. That a soda can kind of sits in the back of your truck, man. It doesn't hiss, it doesn't get mad till you start popping the tab off a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Start popping the tab off, starts foaming up, letting you know, man. I feel like that's what we are like as men, I feel like a lot of us, we just bottle it all up, we build all that pressure up, and we just wait for someone to pop that tab, because when you open a soda can, you don't slowly check it unless it's shaking up, man. And I feel like guys don't let people know how shaken up, how much pressure they built up. So when someone just pops the tab real quick, they just explode everywhere, man. It's roundabout of emotions, man. It doesn't get slowed down. People start not looking for merging. They just start throwing their trouble in there. And that's where accidents come in, man. That's where things blow up. This episode isn't a pity party, man. It's not about crying on the mic or trying to get sympathy, man. I'm just trying to be honest and keep it real with y'all, Men's Mental Health Month is here. And I think it's time we stop trying to be these tanks, man, and we start being people. We gotta stop pretending to be something we're not, man. We have emotions. That roundabout is inside of all of us, man, and we need to recognize that roundabout. It's okay to feel things, man. We all kind of feel things. And I've always kind of bottled up my issues my whole life, man, and it doesn't really help. It doesn't really help to bottle up all of your emotions, You gotta find that space inside of you where you can find some comfort and show people how you're feeling. Because if you're just holding it all in, man, it ain't gonna get any better. You gotta release some of that pressure, I feel like most of us grew up thinking handling it, just doing it all on your own, man, was the only option. You get hurt, you shake it off. You're stressed, you work harder, I remember every time I would scrape my knee playing outside or something when I was a kid, I would just get the hose and wash it off and I would keep running. That's just, oh my gosh, that's just something we did. That's just a normal thing for boys, for men. Just whenever something comes our way, an obstacle, like say a hurdle, you're on the track, you're running, hurdle comes in front of you, jump over it. Another hurdle, you jump over it. Another hurdle, you jump over it. You're so tired, you're about to pass out. You still find that strength to jump over it no matter what. And I feel like a lot of us, we're on this track and we just keep jumping over these hurdles, man. And jumping over these hurdles. And jumping over these hurdles. And I feel like sometimes we need to realize that we're not in a race, man. Sometimes when these hurdles come in front of us, we need to slow down and take steps over it, man. We don't always have to run and sprint and jump over it. We can slow down, man. Because there's going to come a point, if you're always running in life, you're always picking up your feet, man, and never stopping. You're going to get tired, man. You're going to get exhausted, and you're not going to be able to handle that pressure, man. It's like the soda can. You can only shake it up so much before. It's like Mentos and Coke, man. You could close the top on it, man, but eventually that thing's just going to... Or like what we do in my school, man, we get water bottles. We would drink all the water in them or pour them out. Then we would put the top on there slightly and we would twist it. We would twist it. And we twist it so much, put so much pressure on this bottle, man, that eventually it would just pow. It would pop off, shoot the top flying somewhere. It was really fun, dude. I love doing that. Man, and I've noticed that the more pressure you put on it, the louder the pop is, man. I feel like a lot of us, we put all that pressure on ourselves, on the inside of ourselves. And the more pressure we're going to put on ourselves when we pop, the more force we're going to exert. The more louder our pop is going to be. But the thing is, when we put all this pressure on ourselves, man, we're deteriorating our soul. We're breaking down what's on the inside. Our roundabout is starting to get, wear and tear on it. The tread on our tires, man, it's becoming smooth as a bald man's head, man. You know what I'm talking about? It's a weird analogy, but it's smooth as a baby's bottom, dude. It's smooth as this wall. Like a cue ball. That's what the wear and tear on our soul does, man. And the thing about it is, you can't duct tape a cracked soul, man. You can't just get a knife and start putting tread in your tires, man. You got to get a new tire on there. You know what I'm saying? You got to check under the hood eventually, man. Sometimes when we see what's on the outside, like, yeah, I'm healthy physically, man, but what's going on the inside? What's under my hood? Sometimes you got to pop the hood and check on what's going on in there, man. Let's open up. Let's see what we got going on. Let's see what horsepower this baby's got. If we're running so much, our horsepower, man, we're going to get some mileage on that thing. And we're not going to be able to keep it running, You can only run so many miles. And one thing I'm starting to realize, man, is that I can't always... Whenever I pop that hood, man, I don't know a lot about cars, man, but my dad's a mechanic. And sometimes if I were to pop a hood on a car, man, I'd look in there and I'd be like, yeah, that's the engine right there. I think the oil goes in there, man. Yeah, that's about it. Sometimes we could pop open our hood and see what we got going on inside of our lives, man. But sometimes we don't always know how to handle what's going on inside of our minds. Sometimes we can't always handle all these issues on our own, man. And sometimes we got to ask for help. And that's what I've come to realize, man, is that we got to ask for help, man. When I was a kid, my dad and my grandpa, whenever they would go into a store, because they worked together in a company, whenever they would go into a store and they would look for something, say it was paint, for example, they would go and they would look for paint. And they would take laps around the store looking for freaking paint until they found it. But say they didn't find it. They would refuse to ask for help, man. That was just something that they never did. I never saw my parents ask anyone for help. I saw my mom ask for help whenever she needed it. And That's just something that I never watched them do. And I never understood it. When I was a kid, I was like, dude, they work here. Ask someone for help. You're not going to get judged for asking for help. And then as I got older, I started realizing that something was growing inside of me. Like someone had planted a seed, and they were watering it. And I didn't even realize how much they were watering it. And then I started to realize that, asking for help made me feel weak, like I couldn't handle things on my own. And I'm sorry if I say man a lot, but this is my 4th time recording this, and sometimes I don't always know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I feel like I got everything in my life under control, but I don't, man. Sometimes I need to ask for help, because I can't always do everything in this life on my own. And something I've started to realize, man, was, I know I'm saying man a lot, I can feel it, but when I was a kid, I always looked up to the adults like my dad, and I would always say, I want to be like them. They just seem like they got everything under control. How do they do all these things? I just want to be like them. They got everything under control. Then when I got to elementary school, I started looking at the 5th graders, and I would be like, man, they're so old. They're so smart. Then when I became a 5th grader, I would look up to the middle schoolers, and I'd be like, man, they are just so smart. They got it all under control. Then when I was a 6th grader, look up to the 8th graders, and the process just continued, and now I'm a sophomore, and I've started to realize that I'm still looking up to people. I feel like we're all just kids on the inside, man, just in different bodies. We don't always, as people, have everything under control. And I feel like sometimes we got to slow down our roll, man. We just got to find our peace. And we got to realize that, we don't always got it all under control. We got to slow down, and we got to really realize. Let me turn this up. We got to realize that sometimes in this intersection, this roundabout that I was talking about, sometimes we need traffic control, to intervene and help us keep the flow of this going. In my traffic control, I'm not on here to preach to y'all, but my traffic control, I feel like, has been Jesus, man. Whenever I feel like I need help with something and I got too much weight on my shoulders, it's like carrying a backpack full of bricks, man. Sometimes when I'm walking, I'm hurdling over things with this backpack of bricks, man, I just set it down. But if I set it down, I feel like my life just spirals out of control. But then since I started following Jesus, man, I always feel like I have that person right next to me waiting to take the bricks from me. So sometimes I can throw off the bricks, and not only will he take the bricks, but he will start pushing the obstacles, pushing all these hurdles to the side for me. You know what I'm saying? And that's been something that's just like, I never knew that I could have someone like that in my life. And I've realized that being able to ask someone like that for help, that's not being weak. That's smart, man. That's actually a form of leadership, I'd say. Knowing that you aren't built to carry it all alone. And if you live your life without asking for help, nothing's gonna change, man. I've heard people say that nothing changes if nothing changes, man. And that's really wise to say that. Nothing changes if nothing changes, man. I need to stop saying man, first of all. They are blowing up my phone. I'm going to do that for a second. I'll figure it out later. Turn off the messages, man. But I'm sorry if I don't always know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry if I repeat myself a lot. I'm sorry if I'm annoying when I talk. Sorry, my little brother's screaming. But, Hold on, 1 second. Nope, we might be alright. I don't always have my life under control. That's why I went, actually, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'm back now. As I was saying, yeah, my life, I don't always have things under control, man. That's, I get nervous about not having things in control. I have this anxiety a lot that I feel like just nobody really understands. Having control over things is, having control feels safe, feels secure. But sometimes, that control thing, it's like trying to mop up a flood with a paper towel, that you end up soaked and frustrated, and inevitably you end up blaming the mess. You end up blaming the flood, the mess of paper towels, Control feels safe, man. And I feel like control is it's something that every man wants. I watched this movie in my English class. It was called Lord of the Flies. And the main character's name is Ralph. And Ralph was a leader, and he was in control of everything. But then inevitably Jack, he liked things his way, man. And he wanted control over everything. And people ended up dying. People ended up losing their mind. And I feel like that's where we are sometimes in our life. We feel like even if we see someone else in control, we want to be in control. We want to have control over all of our situations. Like my dad, again, man. Say there was a box in front of him that he couldn't lift. It was too heavy. Instead of asking someone for help, which would take 30 seconds, he would put 2 ropes on the ground. He would throw the box on top of it. He would flip it with all of his strength, flip it onto the ropes, tie the ropes to the ceiling, and hoist it down, hoist the box up, then pick it up. Like, he would go through all the steps to make sure that he was in control and that he could do it on his own. He didn't like to ask for help. He liked to have control over things. And I feel like, as I've gotten older, I've always started to have this resentment. I've always kind of had this resentment to my dad. But as I've gotten older, I've started to realize I'm kind of like him, I've noticed that me and my dad, sometimes we don't get along because of how much we have in common. And, I feel like my dad, everything I'm talking about on this episode, I just feel like I've seen in my dad. My dad always feels like he needs control over things. My dad, I've never seen him ask for help. And he stuffs a lot of things down, and he thinks that he has to handle things on his own. He feels like he always has to be in control. And he feels like it's my way or the highway. And I used to wear that like a badge, man. I felt strong saying it, like I was protecting my peace or something. But, in reality, that mindset's a one-way road to isolation. You ever been down one of those roads, and then at the end it's just a dead end, and it's just a circle right there? That's kind of what that's like. The my way or the highway road, it's always the highway. If you live that my way or the highway, it doesn't work, man. You can't build trust if it's always your rules. Your timing and your emotions that matter, you can't build trust on that. Relationships, friendships, even walking with God, it's not about domination, but it's about surrender. Having relationships, even with my dad, I'll go back onto that, man. Having a relationship with him, I feel like it hasn't always been about fighting with him, because we always like to be right. We always like to have control. And I've realized that if I want to have a relationship with him, I have to let him win. My girlfriend, man, I love her to death, but she doesn't know it, but she always feels like she has to be right too. And I know that in myself, I always need to be right too, because that's my human nature. And I've realized that if I wanted to keep this relationship with her, since we're not bonded by blood, it can end so quickly. I've realized I need to let her win. Sometimes it's not about, even if she's wrong about something, sometimes I need to let her think that she's right. Because that's where some peace comes in. That's where the relationship continues. It's like entering a ring, like a boxing ring, right? And you're throwing things back and forth, It's like fighting in an army. One side thinks they're right, the other side thinks they're right. They're fighting for their cause, but inevitably one's wrong. I'm gonna bring it back like this. This is gonna be an insane metaphor here, but Nazi Germany, man. With all the propaganda they had, they were convinced that they were fighting for the right cause, man. But inevitably they were wrong. But sometimes in life when we have wars in our head, sometimes we gotta let our wars for our relationships, sometimes we have to surrender. Not because it means we're weak, because it means we're stronger. If you have the strength to tell someone that you're wrong, not telling somebody that they're wrong, but telling somebody that you're wrong, that is the strongest thing you can do. And a lot of people don't understand that, man. I've realized that I've gotten into a lot of arguments, man. I've gotten into a lot of fights. And the strongest thing I can do is just, even if I know I'm right, even if I want to think I'm right, is just say I'm wrong and I'm sorry. Sometimes you got to take the passenger seat in life, even when you don't like the route that they're taking, because God's driving. God's always driving. And if you sit in the passenger seat and you surrender, God's going to take the steering wheel and he's going to guide you down the right route. There's a Bible story I heard about, or I read actually. And God, before he got in a boat with all of his disciples, he said, we're going to make it to the other side of this ocean, all right? We're going to go over here. We're going to go over to the other side of the ocean. And they were like, okay, let's go. So they all got in the boat. And I don't know if I'm telling this story right, so I ask you to research it. It's in all the Gospels, I think. But Jesus didn't go with them in the boat. He just told them to go to that side of the ocean, I think. I think this is how the story plays out. And then a big storm came over them. I feel like some of us were in a boat, and in our lives we have a lot of storms. We can relate this story to our lives too. And the storm was horrible. It was turning their boat, like it was knocking them around. And they were calling out to God and saying, God, help us, help us, help us. And they were so scared about the storm. But Jesus came to them walking on water, and, he saved them. He saved them. Now, there's two stories about this because Jesus did this twice. That's either how the story plays out, or it might be the story where Jesus was in the boat, sleeping, and they were all scared, waking Jesus up, saying, Jesus, help us, help us, help us, there's a storm. And then he calmed the storm. I get that story mixed up a lot because there's two stories. There's a time where Jesus was in the boat and Jesus wasn't in the boat, I think. But I ask y'all to read that on your own. But the thing is, we can show that into our life, man. sometimes we're so worried about, because we're in this story, we're in the boat. The boat is our life, and we're in our life, man. And this storm is the storm with all these things, our mental health. It's all these things coming and attacking us. Doubts, temptation. Man, Theo Von, he put it in an amazing way. Sometimes we're walking down, we're walking down the street. We're so happy, man. We might pet a puppy. We wave at a neighbor, man. We might tickle a dove. We're kind of we're living our life. We're happy. We're good. And sometimes when we're walking, our train is on the track, man. And we're going. And we pass that temptation station. And we don't even hit the brakes. Sometimes the brakes hit themselves, man. We start looking around like, man, who is on brakes right now? Come on. We don't even want to stop. But sometimes that temptation station is where we get stopped at. It's a hard thing, man, temptation. It's a hard thing. But sometimes we don't need to be conducting the train. Sometimes we need to let God take the Man, how do you even drive a train? Is it a lever or something? I don't even know. That's weird, no, because I've seen trains and they're sitting there in a seat. Well, what's the point of having a... You know what? I don't even know. But sometimes you gotta let God conduct a train. You know what I'm saying? Truth is, the highway, my way or the highway only gets lonely when you're the only car on it. You know what I'm saying? Hope that makes sense to y'all. But the reality of it is that no matter what you're struggling with mental health, people don't see what's going on inside of your head, but they don't see the overthinking, the pressure, the long nights, They don't see that. People don't see that. But God sees the chaos. Jesus sees the chaos. And he doesn't flinch on it, He doesn't get overwhelmed. He just sits with you in it. And he helps you breathe again. Because when I found Jesus, man, I was going through a lot of things about a year ago. And my life, I always filled it with these temporary pleasures. I filled it with addiction. I met this girl, I'd say about 2 years ago. And this isn't a pity party, man, but my whole life I'd say I felt a little unloved a little bit. So when I met this girl, right, I wanted to find this love that I was searching for my whole life that I never had in her. Man, it was like I was looking through a spyglass and I was seeing all the things around me, all of God's plans for me, and I was just looking through this spyglass to see what I wanted to see. It was like I was covering one eye. That was God was trying to guide me through it. I was looking through my own. And I didn't know that because I didn't even believe in God. So what was the point? I did what I wanted. I did what I wanted to do. And, I ended up, she smoked a lot before we got together. And, she told me she was going to do it again. And I already told myself I would never smoke. But she was like, yeah, I guess I'm going to plan on smoking again. And, I really thought I was going to marry this girl. Truthfully, I really thought I really wanted to. So, I decided if she was going to smoke again, I wasn't going to let her be alone. So I ended up deciding to have my friend come over and we smoked. And I started smoking from then on. Taking things, just getting high. And I ended up giving her stuff and then eventually things started getting a little more and I wanted to do anything she wanted to do because it made me feel loved. I knew that if I made her happy and I did what she wanted, it would it made me feel like because if I did what she wanted, she was happy, right? Like I was going down this road and say, you ever been on a road trip, right? And you're going down the road and your dad is upset or something and he's just trying to get there, because a lot of parents don't like to stop. But you're starving and you see a McDonald's and you're like, oh, well, the McDonald's. But your dad you don't even want to say anything because you don't want to make your dad upset. And then eventually this happens so much that you look at the McDonald's and what you want, you're like, man, I don't even want to stop there anymore. I just want to get there. So I wanted to do whatever made her happy, so I ended up sleeping with her. And it just started happening. And then I did it because it was my choice. But, I thought it would make her like me more. And that's, I feel like that's something we deal with. Is that she didn't know what was going on inside my mind. But I knew that my mind didn't matter and I just wanted her. I wanted her love or her attention. And me being a teenager, I just didn't see that, that was stupid to do. My childhood, this isn't a pity party, man, but it was a little rough. I've never told the story to anyone but my dad in the midst of an argument, but I remember when I was about no older than 10, maybe 9 or 8, I was struggling with some things, and this is how I know mental health can affect anyone of any age. So I started writing these letters because it got to the point where, there was alcoholism in the house and there was drugs in the house and my stepmom was in and out of the house. And so I just thought that it'd be easier because my dad was, I thought he would save more money, and I thought my mom wouldn't worry about me as much and my grandpa wouldn't worry about me as much and my little brother would have a better life if, I picked up my passport and took the golden ticket to the, heaven gates. So I started writing these letters and my door's right there. And what I would do is I would write these letters in big words and I would lay them out facing the door. Because like I'm saying, it's hard to ask for help. So that's what I did, and I made it to the point where if anyone wanted to come into my room, because I knew they woke me up for school every day, so if anyone came in my room, they would see these papers laying there, writing about how I felt, and it really hurts me, because I actually just I was cleaning out my drawers, and I actually saw one of those letters, but that's what I did, and probably a week of doing this went by, and then once it got to the end of the week, my stepmom actually came into my room, and she showed me one of the letters. She picked it up and showed it to me, and she actually grabbed it off the ground and showed it to me, and her face was like this. She was like, and she, you know what she said to me? She was like, you need to pick these up before your dad sees them. Yikes. Yeah, man, I know what it's like to, when the people close to you, you just feel like you're not worth anything, man. But I want y'all to know that your soul is so valuable that heaven and hell are fighting for it. And that's what I was going through. I was going through this spiritual conflict, this mental health issue. Because heaven and hell were both fighting for my soul. And that's the beauty in it. You're not too far gone. You're not too messy for Jesus. You don't clean yourself before you get in the shower, do you? No, you get in the shower to be clean, and that's how I see Jesus Christ, You go to Jesus to be cleaned. Jesus wants you when you're dirty. There's a Bible story that says, there's a shepherd, right? And the shepherd has 100 sheep. Now, when the shepherd loses one sheep, he goes and he chases the sheep. he doesn't want to lose one of his sheep. Then when he finds this one sheep, he goes into the local town and he rejoices and he praises and has a celebration. He's like, I found my lost sheep. I found my lost sheep. Then he brings them all together and he goes on about his day. God is the shepherd. We are the sheep. When we get far away from God and we are lost from God, then that's when God comes and looks for us. Heaven will rejoice over the salvation of one sinner than over 99 righteous men, in my eyes. And that's how I see it. I'm not sure the Bible says that, but that's how I see it. So God wants you where you're at. You don't have to be perfect, He just wants you where you are. It's okay not to be perfect. Jesus isn't looking for perfect men, He's looking for the real ones, the available ones, willing to stop. He's looking for the people who are willing to stop acting like robots and act like humans and start living like His sons. Jesus doesn't expect you to be perfect. He just expects you to be willing. I always see Jesus as someone who's, whenever I am alone and I'm struggling with my health, I always see Jesus as someone who's banging on my bedroom door, like, let me in, please let me help you. I just want to help you. I want to love you. And there's some of us who just sit there and they don't even acknowledge the knocking. And then there's some of us who lock the door because they feel unworthy of Jesus. And there's some of us who don't even hear the knocking. But the thing about it is, it's really hard to hear the knocking. If someone was sitting right here next to me, they wouldn't be screaming, would they? The same thing with God. Maybe the reason you don't hear God is because He's right there next to you. And I just have some encouragement, let me just say this straight, you got to trust God. All right, we got that. You got to start trusting God. But one thing that I say that a lot of Christians don't say, and this is something that sets me apart, I'm sorry about that, my little brother's really loud, is you got to start trusting God, right? But you also got to start trusting yourself. You got to trust the version of you that speaks up, that feels things, that admits the weakness. Because that guy's not soft. He's the strongest version of you. You got to trust that. You got to trust the strongest version of you. And that version of you is the one who struggles. Because that's the one that God wants. This week I ask you to take a step, man. Take one step. Text a friend. Tell him how you're feeling. Open up to him. Get a prayer in. Even if it's short. Set your phone down. I encourage you to set your phone down for 10 minutes. Go outside, take a walk, and talk to God like I do. I take prayer walks. And the one encouragement I really have for you guys is to admit to yourself that you're not. Admit to yourself that you're tired of carrying it all alone. Because you are. You are tired of carrying it all alone, and you're tired of carrying it all alone. And that you want someone to help you. Even if it's hard to admit it, that you want someone to help you. And I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher, but I can tell you that Jesus Christ is a real person. And man, he wants to carry that weight for you. Like the bag of bricks I was talking about, He wants to take those bricks and move the hurdles out of the way for you. He wants to be the traffic control in your roundabout. You know what I'm saying? You're not a busted can. You're just a man that's still under construction, and that's okay. It's okay to be under construction because the thing is, when you see a building under construction, for a little while it's going to be struggling, it's going to look ugly, but once it's finished, it looks beautiful, and that's you. You're under construction, man, and don't give up. Don't give up, because you're going to be something beautiful one day. You just got to trust God's going to finish this construction. And He always does. I promise you that. I'm going to get a prayer in now. Alright. If y'all want to join me, you can. You're more than welcome. Let's go. Lord, we thank you so much for all your countless blessings, Lord. I just pray that this is the episode that I can actually publish, because it's like my fourth time making it. I probably spent 2-3 hours planning and making these episodes. And Lord, more importantly, I just ask that you touch the hearts of everybody watching. I ask that you guide them and show them the way, the truth, and the light. I ask that you touch them in dreams and visions, Lord, and you just can show them how much you love them and that they're not alone. I pray for this in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to. I'm going to try to make more episodes when I can, man. But just stay real. Stay solid. Know you're not alone. Love you guys. And if you feel like nobody really understands you, I do, man. Count me in, tap me in, coach, put me in the game, because I understand. And I love you. I love you so much. Have a good one.